It all started that night at the party. I wasn't planning on anything happening. At least, not anything like what ended up happening. It was supposed to be just a casual gathering with friends at our house. My husband John had been working long hours lately. Too long, actually. And honestly, I hadn't felt that spark between us in months. I know it sounds cliché, but it was true. The daily grind of work, responsibilities, and the routine of our marriage had worn us both down. I still loved him, I think, but things were just different. The party wasn't anything fancy. Some music, drinks, a few people chatting in the kitchen. I barely even noticed Mark at first. He was a colleague of mine, someone I'd worked with for a few months. We'd never been close, but there was something about him that had always been hard to ignore. He was charming, with this confident, easygoing vibe that I wasn't used to. He always knew how to make me laugh, always had a story, and his eyes. There was a sparkle in them that made it hard not to get lost. So, there I was, half-heartedly mingling with friends when Mark walked up to me. At first, I barely gave it a second thought. Just a friendly hello. But then he asked about John. It wasn't anything extraordinary, just a casual comment about how John had been working so much. He smiled when I mentioned it, and before I knew it, we were standing in the corner talking about our jobs, life, and somehow, all the things that felt so absent from my marriage. John was there too, but he was talking to someone else. As always, distracted. Mark leaned in a little closer, lowering his voice. You know, it's hard when your partner isn't really present, right? Like, you're physically there, but the connection, he trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished. I couldn't help but nod. Was that how I felt? I had never really thought about it that way before. John's presence had been fading. He was always around, but it was like I was living in a different world, and he was just a shadow of the man I once knew. It was easy to talk to Mark. Too easy. And that's when I realized how much I was enjoying the attention. Mark wasn't like John. He wasn't wrapped up in work or distant from me. He was interested in me. Really interested. Our conversation shifted to something more personal, and I found myself laughing at his jokes, relaxing into his presence. It felt nice to be noticed like that again, to feel like I was more than just someone's wife. I didn't even notice when my body language changed. Leaning in, making more eye contact. But suddenly, the space between us felt charged. The moment I realized I was attracted to him, I felt a rush of guilt. John was downstairs, talking with his friends. But Mark, he was right in front of me, and he was easy to talk to. I could feel the way he was looking at me. His eyes darkening slightly, his smile turning a little more intense. And there it was. He leaned in, just a little, as if waiting for me to make a move. And without thinking I did. I kissed him. Just a small kiss at first, but it was enough to make everything feel real. I pulled away quickly, my heart racing, my mind whirling. What the hell am I doing? I thought to myself. But Mark didn't back off. He didn't act shocked or pull away. Instead, he smirked. I've been waiting for that. I wanted to say something, to apologize, to pull away. But I couldn't. It was like I was trapped in the moment. Caught up in something I knew I shouldn't be doing but couldn't stop. We both stood there for a moment, just staring at each other. I think I was looking for a sign, something that would tell me this was a mistake. But all I saw in Mark's eyes was curiosity and desire. And, I'll admit it, I wanted it too. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I remember the laughter of our friends, the music in the background, but it all felt distant. I wasn't there. I was somewhere else. I kept looking at Mark, wondering if he felt the same pull that I did, and it seemed like he did. Every time our eyes met, it was like we were speaking a language no one else could understand. Later on, when the party started winding down and people began leaving, I went to find John. He was standing by the door, chatting with one of the guys. He gave me a quick smile, but his eyes were tired, distant. I could tell he was ready to go. As we walked outside to leave, I could feel my pulse racing. Mark had said something to me in passing, something about meeting again sometime. But I wasn't sure if it was just casual, or if there was more to it. I was confused. I was torn. We got into the car, and I tried to push the thoughts of Mark away. I smiled at John, but it felt forced. It was hard to smile at him when I was still feeling the heat of what had just happened with someone else. Are you okay? John asked as he pulled out of the driveway. You've been awfully quiet tonight. I nodded. Yeah, just tired. It's been a long week. But the truth was, it wasn't just exhaustion. It was guilt. It was confusion. And I didn't know how to handle it. It felt wrong. But at the same time, it felt so exhilarating. The days following the party felt like a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened between me and Mark. It wasn't like me to act on impulse like that, especially not with someone else. But there I was, struggling to focus on anything except the memory of his lips on mine. Every time I saw John, I felt a pang of guilt, but also a strange sense of relief. It was like I was living two separate lives, one with my husband, who I loved but felt distant from, and one with Mark, who made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in so long. But I pushed those thoughts aside. I was a married woman. I wasn't supposed to feel like this. John and I barely talked about the party. He seemed preoccupied with work, and I was too ashamed to bring it up. But the tension between us lingered, thick and uncomfortable, like an unspoken truth hanging in the air. Then, it happened. That Saturday, we had another small gathering at our house. Nothing too big, just a few friends. John and I had invited some colleagues and a couple of other couples over to catch up. I didn't think Mark would be there, but, of course, he showed up. He had texted me earlier in the day asking if he could come by. I didn't even hesitate before saying yes. I was foolish to think I could pretend everything was normal, but at that moment, I wanted him there, just to see him again, to feel that pull between us. The night started off like any other. People were laughing, chatting, and having a good time. But I couldn't stop looking at Mark. I tried to act natural, but my heart raced every time I saw him glance my way. It was ridiculous. I was a grown woman, married to a man I had loved for years, but there I was, sneaking glances at my colleague, feeling like a teenager again. Around midnight, John decided it was time for him to head out. He had an early meeting the next morning, so he gave me a kiss on the cheek, hugged a few of the guests, and told me he'd see me at home. I felt a strange sense of relief when he left. It wasn't because I didn't want him there, I did, but with him gone. It felt like I could finally let my guard down, even if it was only for a little while. That's when things started to get complicated. Mark came over to me as soon as John was out of the door. He didn't waste any time. "Hey," he said, a playful smile on his lips. "So you're free now?" His voice was low, teasing, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I laughed nervously, glancing around the room. "Mark, stop," I said, half joking, but my heart was pounding. He raised an eyebrow, stepping a little closer. "What? You're married, right? But you're not that busy." His gaze dropped to my lips, and I knew exactly where this was headed. I felt a wave of heat rush to my face. "This is a bad idea," I muttered under my breath, but there was no denying that a part of me wanted it to happen. It had been so long since I felt desired like this. John wasn't the same, and I hated myself for admitting that. Mark didn't respond with words. Instead, he reached up, brushing a lock of hair behind my ear, before letting his hand linger on my neck. I looked up at him, and for a split second, I wondered if I could just pretend this wasn't happening, pretend that I wasn't standing on the edge of a decision that could ruin everything. But I didn't pull away. I didn't say no. Instead, I kissed him. It wasn't like the first time. It wasn't rushed or hesitant. It was deep, raw, and all-consuming. The kind of kiss you have when you've been holding something back for too long. My hands went to his chest, pulling him closer, and I could feel his hands sliding down my back, sending sparks all over my body. For a moment, it felt like the world had disappeared, like it was just the two of us, and nothing else mattered. But then, as if on cue, I heard a voice from the other side of the room. "What the hell is going on here?" I froze, my heart stopping in my chest. It was John. He had come back. I turned to see him standing in the doorway, looking at us, his expression a mixture of confusion and disbelief. The smile faded from Mark's face, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. I stepped back from Mark quickly, my breath shallow, my body trembling. "John, I started, but I didn't know what to say. What could I say?" John didn't wait for an explanation. His face turned red, his fists clenched, and I could see the anger rising in him. "So this is what you've been doing behind my back, with him?" He pointed at Mark, his voice shaking with rage. Mark took a step back, holding his hands up. "Hey man, it wasn't like that. It was just a joke." "A joke," John snapped. "You think this is funny? You think I'm stupid?" The room had gone silent. People were watching, some unsure of what to do, others just staring in stunned silence. I felt like I was suffocating. I wanted to explain myself, to tell John that it wasn't supposed to happen, that I never meant for this to happen, but the words wouldn't come out. All I could do was stand there, paralyzed by the weight of my own guilt. John's eyes locked onto mine, and the pain I saw there made my stomach drop. "I trusted you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And you this." His words cut through me like a knife. "I'm sorry, John," I whispered, but the apology felt hollow. There was nothing I could say to make this right. Then, Mark stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. "Look, man, I never meant for things to go this far. We were just..." Before he could finish, John turned to him, his voice loud and furious. "You stay the hell away from my wife." The tension in the room was unbearable. I had no idea what would happen next. Would John leave? Would he even want to talk to me again? All I could do was stand there, watching as everything I'd ever taken for granted slipped away in front of my eyes. The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog. Everything around me seemed distant, as if I were watching my own life unfold from behind a glass wall. The moment John walked in and saw Mark and me together, his face twisted in shock and anger. Everything shifted. I never thought it would come to this, but there I was, standing in the wreckage of my own choices. What had I done? After the party, John barely spoke to me. His silence was suffocating. He didn't yell, he didn't scream, he just withdrew. That was worse. The silence between us was deafening, and I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I had to face him, but I didn't know how to make it right. What could I say? I had betrayed him. No amount of apologies would erase that. The following evening after work, John came home later than usual. I was sitting on the couch, trying to find the right words to say. He walked in, barely acknowledging me, and sat down at the kitchen table without even looking in my direction. "John," I whispered, standing up. I couldn't stand the distance between us anymore. I needed to talk. He didn't answer. Instead, he took a long breath, as if he was trying to control his emotions. "So, I guess we need to talk about what happened." His voice was cold, detached. I swallowed hard. I don't know where to start. He finally looked at me, his eyes tired, haunted. "You know, I was thinking about everything. You and Mark, how long has this been going on?" His voice cracked slightly when he said Mark's name, and that was when I realized just how much this had hurt him. My heart twisted. I couldn't lie anymore. It wasn't like that," I stammered, desperate to explain. "I didn't mean for any of it to happen, John. I swear, I never wanted to hurt you." He shook his head slowly, his hands gripping the edge of the table. "But you did. You didn't just hurt me, Lisa. You broke something in me. I trusted you. You were my partner, my wife, and you betrayed that trust with him." I could feel my chest tightening. I wanted to say something that would make him understand, but how could I explain the mess I had gotten myself into? How could I justify betraying the man I loved? "I don't know why I did it," I whispered. "I guess I was. I don't know. I was just lonely." My voice trembled, and I felt tears well up in my eyes. I never meant for it to get out of hand. But with Mark, it felt like I was being seen again. Like I mattered. John's expression softened for a moment, but there was still so much hurt in his eyes. "I don't know if that makes it better, Lisa. It's not just about you feeling lonely. It's about what you did behind my back. What you kept from me. I can't even look at you right now." Those words hit me harder than anything else. "John, please," I said, walking closer to him. "I'm sorry. I know I messed up. I can't take it back, but I will do anything to make it right. I don't want to lose you." He stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. "How do I even know you're sorry, Lisa? How do I know you're not just sorry you got caught?" I froze. That question hit harder than any accusation. Was I really sorry? Or was I just trying to salvage what I could before he walked away for good? I didn't know. I didn't have an answer for him. John ran a hand through his hair, looking exhausted. "I need some space. I can't even think right now. I'm not sure what I want. But I can't pretend everything's okay. Not when you did this." His voice was hollow. I could feel everything slipping through my fingers. This wasn't how I imagined things would go. I never thought I'd be standing here, begging my husband for forgiveness after I had destroyed everything we had built together. "I never thought it would end like this, John," I said, my voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. But I did. I'm so sorry." For a long moment, he didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring at the floor, his jaw tight. "I need to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm not saying we're over, but I don't know if I can forgive you." "Not yet." And just like that, I was left standing in the wreckage of my own making. John walked out of the room without another word. I could hear him go upstairs, closing the door behind him. I was alone again, but this time, it was different. The silence felt even heavier. This wasn't the silence of a comfortable marriage. It was the silence of a relationship that had been shattered. And it was all my fault. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, guilt consuming me. I kept replaying the events of the party in my mind. The kiss with Mark, John's face when he saw us, the way everything fell apart so quickly. I couldn't stop thinking about how much I had hurt him, how much I had destroyed. But then, there was Mark. I couldn't stop thinking about him, either. In a way, he had made me feel alive again, made me feel like I was wanted. But now, standing in the ruins of my marriage, I realized how much I had taken that for granted. I had used Mark as an escape, a distraction from everything that was wrong with me and with my marriage. And now it was all falling apart. I reached for my phone, hesitated for a moment, and then dialed Mark's number. It rang a few times before he picked up. Liza. His voice sounded tired, as if he had been expecting this. What's going on? I swallowed, my heart pounding in my chest. I need to talk. Can we meet? There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Mark sighed. I don't know if that's a good idea, Liza. What's going on with you and John? You need to figure that out first. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I know, I don't know what to do anymore. Then you need to make a decision, Liza. You can't keep going back and forth between John and me. Someone's gonna get hurt. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of his words. He was right. I had to make a choice. But in that moment, I realized something. I didn't want to lose John. Even if it meant that everything I had with him would never be the same, I didn't want to let him go. But the question was, would he ever forgive me? Would I be able to fix the mess I had made? I didn't have an answer, and that scared me more than anything. The next few days felt like an emotional roller coaster, and I found myself constantly questioning my decisions. Every conversation with John was strained. There was this heavy weight hanging between us, and every word I spoke seemed to add more distance. I knew I had made a colossal mistake, but I also knew that the damage was done. There was no going back to what we had before, at least, not without confronting the truth and the mess I had created. John and I barely spoke after that night. He kept to himself mostly, staying late at work, avoiding me when he was home. I could see the pain in his eyes every time he looked at me, and I felt it too. The weight of everything that had been shattered between us. It was like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing that one wrong move would make everything fall apart for good. I didn't know how to fix it, but I knew I had to try. I tried talking to him a few times, but each time he would shut me down. He would say he needed space, or that he wasn't ready to talk. I could see that he was hurting. I could feel his anger and confusion, and I understood why. I had betrayed him in the worst possible way. I had let myself get lost in a fantasy, and in the process, I had hurt the one person who had always been there for me. After a few days of this silence, I knew I couldn't just sit around and wait for things to magically get better. I had to take responsibility for what I had done, and that meant facing John. Even if it was painful. I had to show him that I was truly sorry and that I was willing to do whatever it took to fix this. One night, after dinner, I gathered the courage to sit down with him. He was sitting on the couch, his eyes glued to his phone. I could tell he was avoiding eye contact with me. But I knew that if I didn't speak now, I might lose him forever. John. I began softly, my voice trembling. Can we talk? He didn't look up, but I could see his jaw tighten. What is there to talk about, Liza? You've made your choice. You've already shown me where your priorities lie. I swallowed hard, feeling the sting of his words. I know I messed up. I can't take back what I did, but I am so sorry for hurting you. I never wanted to hurt you, John. I don't know why I did it. It was a mistake. A huge mistake. And I'm ashamed of myself. He didn't say anything for a moment. I could see the anger still burning in his eyes, but there was something else too, something softer, more vulnerable. You don't get it, do you? He finally said, his voice quiet but full of emotion. This isn't about a mistake, Liza. It's about trust. You shattered the trust we had. How do you expect me to just forget that? How do I know you won't do it again? I felt my heart breaking all over again. I can't promise that I'll never make a mistake again, but I can promise you that I will work every day to rebuild your trust. I know I have a long road ahead of me, but I'm willing to walk it. I don't want to lose you, John. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. I don't know if I can forgive you. Not yet. And I don't know if I ever will. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew I couldn't force him to forgive me, and I wasn't going to try. But the thought of losing him, of seeing him walk out of my life for good, was something I couldn't bear. I understand, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. But please know that I am truly sorry. And I'll do whatever it takes to prove it to you. I'll do anything. He stood up then, running a hand through his hair. He paced around the room, clearly torn. I could see him struggling with his own feelings. His anger, his pain, his love for me. It was all swirling together in a way that left him more confused than ever. And I couldn't blame him. I don't know, Liza, he muttered. I don't know if I can trust you again, but I'm not ready to just throw everything away. Not yet. I need time to think. I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes. I can give you time. I won't rush you. I just want you to know how sorry I am. And that I love you. I don't want to lose you. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. I don't know what will happen between us, Liza, but you need to figure out what you want. This isn't just about us. It's about you too. Do you want to fix this, or are you just going to keep running away from what we had? I stared at him, my heart aching. What did I want? The truth was, I had never felt more lost. I had gotten so caught up in my own emotions, in the thrill of something new, that I had forgotten what really mattered. John was the person I had chosen to spend my life with. He was my partner, my best friend. But I had pushed him aside, and for what? A brief, reckless fling with Mark. It didn't make sense. I had destroyed the one thing that had always given me stability. My relationship with John. I want to fix this, John, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I want us to be okay again. I don't know how, but I'll do whatever it takes. Just give me a chance. John didn't say anything more. He just walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, alone with my guilt and regret. The next few days were some of the hardest of my life. John stayed distant, and I couldn't blame him. I gave him the space he needed, but I also kept thinking about what he had said. I needed to figure out what I wanted too. I couldn't keep running away from the consequences of my actions. I had to face them, no matter how painful it was. And then, there was Mark. I had to confront him as well. I hadn't spoken to him since that night, and I knew I couldn't keep avoiding the situation. I needed to end things with him. Once and for all. It was the only way to move forward, to prove to John that I was committed to rebuilding our life together. I called Mark, my heart pounding in my chest as I dialed his number. When he picked up, his voice was warm, but there was an undertone of uncertainty. Liza, he said, sounding like he knew what was coming. I can't do this anymore, Mark, I said, my voice steady but firm. I made a mistake. I've hurt my husband, and I'm trying to fix things with him. I can't keep seeing you. It's over. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear him processing my words. I get it, he finally said, his voice colder than before. I knew this was coming, eventually. I just didn't expect it to happen like this. I'm sorry, I whispered. I never meant for you to get hurt, but I have to fix things with John. I owe him that. Good luck with that, Mark said, his tone sharp now. But don't expect things to go back to how they were before. You've already made your choice. The finality of his words stung, but I didn't argue. I hung up, feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. I had made my choice. Now, it was time to face the consequences and try to rebuild the life I had almost thrown away. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to happen overnight, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was finally taking control of my own future. I didn't know where it would lead, but I was ready to walk that path. With John, if he would have me, or on my own, if I had to. But one thing was certain, I wasn't going to let my past mistakes define me. I would fight for the future I wanted, no matter how long it took. Months passed, and life slowly began to find its rhythm again, though it was never quite the same. John and I had managed to rebuild, piece by piece, but the scars of what happened never fully faded. We were no longer the same couple we once were, and I realized that was okay. Sometimes, people need to break apart to truly understand what they've lost and what they're willing to fight for. John didn't forgive me overnight. Hell, it took longer than I expected. But we found our way back to each other. Not the way we were, but something more fragile, more real. It was a new foundation we were laying, one that was built on understanding and, most importantly, honesty. There were times when I'd catch him looking at me like he was still trying to decide if he could trust me again, And there were moments when I thought I could never forgive myself for what I had done. But somehow, we kept going. Mark disappeared from my life entirely, as I had expected. He stopped calling, stopped texting, and when I saw him at work again, it was like I was looking at a stranger. That part of my life was over, and I couldn't change it. But I had learned the hardest lesson. The thrill of the moment was never worth the price I'd paid. John and I didn't talk about it much anymore. The past was there, lurking quietly, but we had decided to let it stay behind us. We were both different people now, but maybe that was what we needed. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, I was willing to face it. With John, and with the truth I had come to understand.